So we're down here today doing the first season's grease on everything. And in the back there isn't that many Zert fittings. I know that you got two on either side, right? Your suspension pivots. This would be a great time to look over all your dog bones and check to see that the rubber isn't cracking too bad. If you suspect anything, pry on them a bit with this pry bar or crowbar or something. You got a Zert fitting on that U-joint, on that slip yoke, and then on that U-joint right there. And that pattern's repeated. You got a U-joint, slip yoke, U-joint, and then it's your parking brake. This one I bet gets missed a lot. That's your speedometer. Gear. Well, no, it can't be, can it? Because I think, is that your speedometer gear or is that your tachometer? The tach doesn't come off there. Tach can come off the motor. Well, you've got a cable coming out of right here. And it might just be part, this is a 925, so it might just be part of the PTO, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyways, I give that a bunch of squirts. Best I can tell, any grease that you put in here goes inside the transfer case, so as long as grease gun's clean, there's really no way to over-grease it. If you have the PTO, obviously, you've got Zert fittings at either end and the slip joints there. And then you got that one. Now, this one is often neglected, and I've been able to get grease in it on all my trucks just by rotating it, and I have ground the end of my grease gun down a little bit to make it fit. The other thing I've done on one of them is I radiused this with a rotary file really carefully, and yeah, you're not going to take enough to break the thing. So you're going to want to get grease in that. Oh, like a little slop in that joint. You're going to want to get grease in that once in a while. It's pretty straight, so it doesn't often flex, but still. Okay. Obviously, both sides of your shackles. What you really should do, if you've never done it, is get your jack out, put a block up to the frame, lift it so that the suspension hangs, and when the suspension hangs, then you can get grease to the top side, or rather the bottom side, rather than just greasing the top side. I don't do it every time, I only do it once a year like that. Obviously steering linkage on both sides, right? Huh. That's grease turning into oil. It's probably mixing with oil in there. I got a leaking seal. It's actually coming out of this joint right there. It's not weeping out of here. Awesome. It's going to drip on my rims all season long. And if I get a DOT inspection, I'll have to listen to them tell me how I need to correct it. I know I need to correct it, but it ain't going to hurt anything right now. Okay, you got steering linkage to the top, obviously your kingpins, top and bottom. Okay, both ends of your steering pistons. I don't know if I mentioned front drive lines, but that should be pretty much a no-brainer. If you got a winch, it's got Zert fittings all over the place, but you know, if it hasn't been used, then it doesn't need to be greased. People will tell me that's not true, but yeah, it's fine. Hey, that's this hood pivot mount. You're looking straight up now at the front of the truck, and you can actually see the grease gun I got stuck on it because it didn't want to take grease, and that one has a big long handle, and I thought, power! And so now it's stuck there, and I really don't want to break that Zert fitting off, so I was just going to leave it in the hot sun and see if it leaks down. Okay, more steering linkage, obviously top and bottom again, and you got your pivot points. You also have your steering shaft. The closest I ever came to breaking something, getting a U-joint apart on this or any of these trucks, was getting those little U joints out of the steering shaft. In order to get to the bottom part, as far as I know, you have to take that shroud off. Yes, you should do it. If you haven't done it yourself, you should do it. Once you've done it yourself, you know, maybe you can make it an every year or an every other year thing, depending on how much you drive it. But you just got to do it yourself. And there's a slip yoke in there you want to grease as well. That's the major ones. Oh. You know, you can lube the cab pins, you can lube your door handles and your door hinges and stuff like that. No lock wire. It's perfectly fine. Why we don't all just replace these with 3/4 inch, like a castle head bolt? I have no idea. It'd make our lives easier. You can just get in there with a socket wrench or whatever. I'd very much like to pull and pump some grease into these hubs. The fact that that one's weeping, probably fine. But you pull that zert fitting right there, not zert fitting rather, you pull that, what am I trying to say? Allen head. You pull that Allen head out, and yeah, you can go ahead at that point and screw a zert fitting in. You don't want to leave them there because I guess on sharp corners you'll rip your boots. I have rust right there. Why do I have rust right there? There should be no rust up here. It must be. Don't like that. It must be water from the backside, but I don't like that. Anyways, you pull that thing out right there, and what I just do is you take one out on both sides so they don't pressurize. Or to be honest, I'll pull this back one out, and I'll take the end off the zert gun, and I'll just stuff it in the hole, and I'll just pump it 40 times or something like that till your hands start to cramp up, and that is the precise right amount. And then you put the screw back in. If you're super worried about it, you should know that all you're doing, however, is pumping into, you know, those front axle shafts. You're not pumping into the bearings. So if you want to get more grease in the bearings, you still have to pull the hubs off, and you got to pull the outer bearing. And I'm toying with doing that this year, but you got to pull the outer bearing out, and then you can pump. You can pump the cavity in between full of grease. And then you can put that outer bearing back on. And like I said, I'm really toying with it, but you know, there's less than 8,000 miles since I did those bearings, so it's probably still fine. You know, once that grease reallocates itself in there, you know, as Jeff Bradshaw of Elderly Iron says. By the way, check out his channel if you haven't. Is that extra grease in the hub is really there so when it gets hot, the grease can't run out of your bearings because there's already grease in the hub, so it's got no place to go. So if it runs out, it's got to run back in, and that's why you want to pump your hubs full of grease. And I've personally have been pretty neglectful on you know, leaving the hubs totally full, and he wanted to correct me on that, so I'm passing that along. Basically, I should have filled the entire hub rather than just greasing the bearings and gooing up the inside. But that'll do it. That'll get you through. If you want to do more, you can do more. There's no need for me to look in my pumpkins. I looked at them last year, and they've only got, I don't know, like 10,000 miles on them. So that's all fine, provided they aren't leaking. The only leaking spot I see is right there. It's going to get on my dang tires, and DOT's not going to like it. So I'm going to have to be scrubbing that all the time. But the fact is, it's June 4th, and we aren't operating. So, yeah, she's going to have to go to work. I don't like that line rubs on that oil pan. I don't like it rubs on the oil pan, and I don't like it rubs on the line. I'm going to have to do something about that. Dipstick's weeping too. That's fine. That's fine. So anyways, Good luck with your trucks. Don't break them.